You're live, it says. Hello, everyone. I am live. I'm checking on my screen over there. I see the chat here. Okay, this will be recorded, Brian. Yeah, so if you can't stay for the whole thing, don't worry. It will be recorded and posted. Julie plays guitar. Thank you so much for the super chat donations. If you guys are enjoying what I'm doing here for you guys on this practice session, feel free to do a super chat or super sticker. Love to shout you guys out. Las Vegas, Dwight, that's awesome. I'm actually going to be in Las Vegas in a few days. I have some traveling I'm doing this week. I'm going to a YouTube conference for YouTubers. How exciting. So just like a YouTuber, I have to learn what to practice, right? We need to know, is practice perfect? Can you make practice perfect? I was listening to a speaker, and I feel like it wasn't Les Brown, but it was someone in that similar field. And they were talking about practice makes progress. Practice doesn't make perfect, it makes progress because let's face it, none of us are perfect. I'm not perfect. I've been playing this guitar, well, not this new Taylor. I've been playing guitar for over 20 years now, and I'm not perfect. And you guys see me. I leave in the bloopers sometimes in the videos. I drop my pick on the ground, I hit the wrong note, or I play the wrong chord sometimes, or sometimes I just don't even use the right words. You guys are probably very familiar with that if you've been watching my channel for a while. So practice does not make perfect. And I think that's a big thing that we have to remember, especially as beginners, as we're learning this instrument, because it's a journey. And Eddie, I don't want you to give up on guitar. I want you to think about it as a journey, okay? And that when you start on a journey, I always tell people, think about it like a language. I think people assume that they can get from point A to B much quicker on guitar than learning a language. So I just tell people, think how long it's going to take for you to master or become fluent in a new language, because that's what this is. Even though it's an instrument and there's a lot of mechanical stuff that we have to do, you have to remember we're learning something new, something exciting. So I want you to remember that it's not going to be perfect in the beginning. People ask me all the time, my chords, they sound like this. No matter what I do, I keep muting the bottom string, or this finger keeps muting this string. That's totally normal. You guys are not weird. You're not different. The same thing happened to me. Trust me, you're normal. Okay, that's absolutely, everyone goes through that period. One, because of calluses and finger dexterity and your wrist, how dexterous your wrist is and your knuckles. All right, everything happens when it's supposed to. I had someone today who was like, I hate this D chord. No matter what I do, I keep muting this bottom string. And I said, you know what? Just enjoy the process. Remember, we're trying to learn mechanics in the beginning. And I said, one day you're going to wake up and all of a sudden you're going to go to your guitar and you're going to play that D chord and it's going to sound like that. And you're going to be wondering, what the heck did I do that was different, right? Thank you so much, Bomb, for my You Are Amazing sticker. Love it. You're going to go, what did I do differently? It's just going to happen one day. I promise you, one day you're going to wake up and it's just all going to come together and you're not going to know what you did different. Your hand is just going to be adjusting little micro measurements over time. Okay. So once again, thank you to Julie. Thank you to Bob for your super chats and your super stickers. Really, really appreciate that. Yeah. Practice makes permanent. Do the wrong thing often and you will often be doing the wrong thing. Yes. So let's talk about that. That's a great point, Danny, that you're bringing up. So when you're practicing, yes, as much as possible, you want to be practicing things in the right way, because not only does your brain remember what you do right, it also remembers what you do wrong. So even though this is an A minor chord, if you train your brain that this is a D chord, it's gonna do something different. So you always want to be trying as best as possible to practice the right way. So even though your D chord sounds like this, as long as your fingers are getting to the right spots, that's great. And this is where I talk to students about, are we practicing for clarity or are we practicing for speed, because Danny, this is the one occasion where sometimes you're not going to be 100%. All right, when you go very slow, when you're trying to figure out, okay, I gotta fix this finger, I gotta make sure this knuckle is bent for this to sound good. But when you're trying to practice going between a D chord and a G chord, and you're trying to do it as fast as possible, as fast as you can, back and forth, like we do in the 7-level guitar system, we just practice back and forth, just 2 chords. You are going to have to sacrifice some clarity, some little bit of perfection to push yourself to be faster. I did that when I was learning the Stairway to Heaven guitar solo. I mean, it's a very, very fast solo. It's all pentatonic scale stuff, some really cool licks. And in order for me to push myself to get out of my comfort zone and go faster, I had to play the solo every once in a while with a few mistakes, pushing myself as fast as I could, because that's how you really get yourself to speed up. If you practice perfection every time you sit down and play guitar, you won't get the speed as quickly. And I think that's what happens to a lot of students when they're practicing chords, is we get so obsessed with everything having to sound perfect. And it really puts us behind in terms of catching up on the chord changes and the chord speed, all right? So if you're doing G to C, I know that's a tough chord change, but if it kind of sounds like this, but your fingers are going in the right spots, that's okay. I call that kind of like the breakdown the speed. The fastest speed you can play them at without it completely falling apart, so that your G chord doesn't look like, like this, and it's not landing on the wrong strings. As much as maybe it's muted, but that's okay. Okay. So that's where sometimes I tell people, practice doesn't have to be perfection. It's when you're practicing for speed, sometimes it doesn't have to be perfect, because if you want to push yourself out of your comfort zone, you're going to make mistakes. And we learn a lot from mistakes, but not only do we learn from the mistakes, the biggest part, this is what happens with most people. Let's take a spider exercise, okay? Most people, they'll do this, right? And then they'll make a mistake, and then they go, and then what do? Right back to the beginning. Then, I made that mistake again, and they go back to the beginning. And what happens? I made that mistake again. So now you've just made this mistake 3 times in a row. You're training your body that that's what you're supposed to do at that point. The biggest progress comes from playing through the mistake. Okay? Oh, made the mistake. Keep going. Oh, made a mistake. Keep going. Some of my students are on here. We do live song circles. Okay, so they get to see me performing live. And sometimes I prep for these a little bit. Sometimes I prep a lot if I don't know the song. And sometimes I will hit a wrong chord. My students have seen me in the middle of a performance. I hit the wrong chord. And do I go, crap, and stop playing the guitar? Oh, we got to start over again. No, I just go, if it's Brown Eyed Girl and we're going, I switched the chord real quick. So I'll be like, I played the wrong chord, but I don't stop my strumming. And I mentally say, that's not the right chord. Lauren, you played the wrong chord. And I switch the chord as quickly as possible, because that trains you that, whoops, I made a mistake, but I can fix my mistake on the fly. And that's what a lot of professional musicians can do. A lot of times I've seen lots of artists perform live, and I can hear their mistakes, obviously, because, I know what to listen for, but I can hear, like, someone will be playing a solo and nobody else will probably know they made a mistake, but I can hear, just because of the way the timing of the note falls, I'm like, they screwed up there. They made a mistake, but nobody noticed because they didn't make a big deal about it. They didn't go, and stop playing their guitar solo. No, they kept playing through it. There's many, many times I've gone to live performances and seen professional musicians that were paying good money to go and see make mistakes on the guitar. So I just want you to remember that sometimes it's not about being perfect, all right? Carolyn's on the chat here. Thank you. I'm not obsessively focused on perfection. I'm more focused on learning and progressing. Carolyn had a nice performance that I got to attend over the weekend. And she performed very well. She performed very well, and I bet she made a lot of mistakes to get there. Carolyn, you can let us know in the chat how many mistakes you made to get to that performance, because it was beautiful. Keith Gadwell, thank you so much for your super chat donation and sticker. Really appreciate you guys jumping on here with me talking about practice. So another question, I got some notes here, and I'll stick to my notes as well, and I might take some other questions from you guys too. How long should I practice for? It's a question I get asked all the time. And, I have students like, oh, I got to practice for an hour or it's not worth it. And I don't believe that that's true. There's actually a lot you can do in 5 minutes. When I used to teach in person a lot, I had a little timer that we would put on for 5 minutes. And, say you're going to practice a pentatonic scale. You were just learning how to play the pentatonic scale. And T, thank you for your super chat. Thank you so much. And thank you for always commenting on my videos, T. I do see your comments, guys. I do read them and respond. So thank you so much. So you're practicing this pentatonic scale, okay? And you're going through, and I would say, hey, sit there with this for 5 minutes. Okay, and it might not be the most exciting thing in the world, right? Just going up and down this pentatonic scale, but maybe you get comfortable with playing the scale up and down, that you start doing different turnarounds and different points. Okay, and you start doing different things with the pentatonic scale, but I would say practice that for 5 minutes. Okay, just like chord changes. Oh, my chord changes stink. That's okay. Spend 5 minutes working on chord changes. Do a minute. Do 5 chord changes for 1 minute. Okay, and you will start getting better. Okay, it's better if you can do it for like 2 minutes in a row, really get the repetitions in there. But I always tell people, try to break things down into the 3 fundamentals. Okay, scales are another thing. You can put scales under picking, but the 3 fundamentals that I really work with my beginner players is finger dexterity, so your spider exercises, okay? Getting those fingers to move, just getting the fingers to move. And then chords and chord changes, because you need to be able to play chords and change between them, right? To play songs, even if you're doing power chords. You got to practice changing between these chords, because if you can't do that fluidly, right, you're not going to be able to play songs. And that's what everyone wants to do. We want to play songs so that, when the family comes over, we can just, hey, look at this song I can play, and everyone has a lot of fun. Or you go over a friend's house and there's a guitar in the corner and they ask you to play a song. So lots of great things. And then the last one is timing. Okay. So whether you are picking, whether you're playing chords, whether you're singing over the chords, whatever you're doing, whether you're strumming, there's timing. Timing is one of the most important elements of music. And that's why in the 7-level system, I focus a lot on rhythm. I think there's maybe 50 or 60 different strumming patterns, but we really focus on timing, okay? And the first thing I tell people, level 1, I know we keep it simple, but it's so important to just understand timing, because I know a lot of people down the road, when things get more complicated, they feel like they lose their timing. So we start off very simply with quarter notes. Hey, can you strum a chord? 1, 2, 3, 4. Count to 4 and then switch. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1. That's a brown-eyed girl again. And 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Because if you can't do this, I can't ask you to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So getting that foundation of timing is super important. And as a rhythm guitar player myself, even when you're playing solos, there's timing in solos, all right? There is counting, there's timing. But for me as a rhythm guitar player, timing is so important. And some of you who are my students know I took drum lessons for a few years. I can actually play the drums too. I don't teach drums, but I played them for a few years. I played in some bands as a drummer. And I found when I was drumming that it actually made me a better guitar player, because I was so much more cognizant about the timing. So if you're someone who has difficulties with rhythm and timing, sometimes it's best to just walk away from the guitar and clap your hands. So say we were doing a rhythm that's 1, 2, 3, and 4, and for some reason you just couldn't get 1, 2, 3, and 4. And you're like, I I don't know, I can't get the timing of this. I usually would tell students, hey, let's take the guitar away and let's clap and go. Okay, that's one thing I would do. I'd say clap the rhythm. Most people are pretty good at clapping rhythms. Then I would say, I don't care if your voice is horrible. It's just us here in the room. And if you're at home, no one's going to hear you. Anyway, I would tell people sing the rhythm, because there's an interesting thing that happens when you sing. I find a lot of times if you can sing a rhythm, you can play it. All right. So if we go 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then we put it over the guitar. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4. And if the timing falls apart at that point, it's usually not that you have bad timing. It's usually that there's a lot of tension in your strumming hand, and you're kind of like roboting, or your arm is kind of like spasming as you do these up strums. So for a lot of people, it's not necessarily that the timing's bad. And for some people it is. I've taught students who had horrible rhythm, and we were able to get them on beat. All right. It just takes a little bit more timing, a little bit more practice, but that's where is practice perfection? No, practice is progress. Practice is saying, okay, I'm just going to sit here on this quarter note and see if I can count to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Frank, you're welcome. I'm glad this is incredible. Makes me feel happy. We have a question over here. Grave Encounters says, I'm new to your channel. Hello and welcome. And new to guitar. I've been playing for a month, but I couldn't play a single thing until I started watching your channel. Now I can play 6 songs. That's awesome. Congratulations. That's fantastic. And you can see, sometimes it just takes hearing things in a different way. And, there's a lot of great guitar teachers here on YouTube. I'm not the only guitar teacher. I think what makes me a little bit different is because I didn't go to university. I didn't go to college for music. For those of you who don't know, my degree is actually in biology and archaeology. I used to be a research scientist. I work in cancer research for many years. And I just think about guitar in a different way. And sometimes it's hearing things. So that's why, when you go off this call, go back and watch the replay, because you might hear me say something a second time that you didn't catch the first time, or maybe it hits a different way, right? I've had lots of students who have gone through my course, and then they go through it a second time and they hear things from a totally different angle, or they try something that they weren't able to do the first time. So this is the great thing about practice. Just because you can't do it the first time, or just because you don't understand it the first time, doesn't mean it's not going to happen on the second time, or the third time, or the fourth time. To all my students, this is a guitar journey. It's unique to everyone, okay? I've been playing guitar now. How old am I? So I've been playing guitar for almost 23 years now, okay? I'm on chapter 23 of the book, and I still have so much more to learn, but you guys are looking at me, and some of you are maybe on chapter 1 or chapter 2 or chapter 3, and you're like, wow, you're so good. I'm horrible at this. And it's like, well, you're on chapter 1. I would expect you not to be as good as someone who's chapter 30 or chapter 50 in the book, right? Same thing with learning a language. If you're just getting started, you're piecing together some words, you're throwing some things here and there. You don't sound so great, but the more you get into it, the more developed your strumming patterns can get. Because I get a lot of students like, I'm playing it. We'll play Brown Eyed Girl. Oh, it doesn't sound like the song. It's like, well, we're not doing really intricate strumming yet. It's not like a song like, Wonderwall, where you play the strumming pattern. Like, you guys are like, oh, yeah, that's Wonderwall. Yeah, but if you're just going, that's the right timing, right? Could you tell it was Wonderwall? Maybe not. But the most important thing is your timing, and you're playing in time. And if you can play along with the track, that's great. The track will fill in the empty space. So I always tell students, when you're practicing, don't be in a rush to get to the end, because your journey is very unique to you. For some people, It's going to take them years. Some people, it's going to take months to do certain things. You're all unique. You're all at different levels. You're all at different ages, different, disabilities. I have some students who have severe arthritis. I even have a student, I think he's missing, like his strumming hand is deformed. And we figured out a device that he could hold so that he could hold the pick and strum. One of my students recommended a device for him. And those are just different things. We all have different trade-offs. Our bodies are all built differently. So this is going to be different for every one of us. No one's going to have the exact same guitar journey, but that doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. So if you're feeling frustrated learning guitar, I know Eddie said, hey, I gave up. Like, don't give up. Don't give up. You will not win if you quit. All right. It might take you years, and that's okay. That's perfectly fine. Okay. I just want you guys to know this isn't going to happen instantaneously. Anything worth doing takes time. If it were easy, everyone would be doing it. Are there easier ways to go about it? Yes, I believe if you have a blueprint, like I teach you in the 7-level guitar system, if you have a blueprint to follow, things can be easier, but you still have to put in the hard work in the practice. But practice doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to make progress, guys. All right, let's see if I can grab a couple questions here before we sign off for the night. Hello from Los Angeles. Still on chapter 1 for the 53rd time. Bill, that happens to a lot of people. I've worked with many students who have started and stopped the guitar, started and stopped. Now, the great thing is it's kind of like riding a bike. If you've built a little bit of muscle memory, you never really lose it. It does take a little bit to get it back to the full extent of where it was. But the reason a lot of people do that start and stop is they overwhelm themselves by learning too much information. And that's why I say when you're practicing, stick with the 3 topics. Try focusing on 3 things. Because if you're going to practice a song, learn this lick, practice these chords, do this strumming pattern, and then I'm going to try this really cool blues riff, and then I'm going to do, you're all over the place. You need to develop muscle memory, and muscle memory comes from repetition. So that's why I say focusing on less is actually more, because the sooner you can get that muscle memory, the better. That's why I only teach my students 4 chords in the beginning. Okay, we'll learn all the other chords, but there's so much we can do with just 4 chords. And when I used to teach students in person in my studio, we used to stay on those 4 chords for months. I mean, we would play tons of songs with just those 4 chords, and maybe every once in a while I'd add in an extra one if we needed like an A minor chord or something. But my students weren't like, I want to learn more chords. We were having so much fun with just those 4. So that is always my encouragement to people, E minor, C, G, D, those 4 chords. If you can get those down and master them, you can do so much on the guitar. So don't overwhelm yourself. If you're feeling like this, I'm getting frustrated, this is horrible, just take a deep breath, back it up, and go back to foundation. Just like in sports, all right? Basketball games are won on free throws and layups, right? The most basic thing. It doesn't matter, if you can do spinnings or slam dunks or all these wonderful things. Free throws and layups are really what win basketball games. The basics, the foundation. Same with guitar. Stick with the foundation. Build finger dexterity. So if you're practicing, start with the warm-up, okay? Do one of the spider exercises or another finger exercise that you like, okay? Focus, then go, okay, I've warmed up. Let's work on chord changes, right? And just pick 2 chords and go back and forth, okay? Do that for 1 or 2 minutes. Great, now I'm going to do a different chord change. I was just doing G and C. Well, maybe now I'm going to do G and D. I'll stick with the G chord. G, D, G, D, back and forth, okay? Back and forth with your metronome. And then you're like, all right, let me do one more. What's the other one? Oh, G and E minor. Okay, G and E minor. That gets me all the chord changes off of a G. Okay, so I really, even though I did 3 different chord changes, I really focused on that G chord, didn't I? All of them included G. So that practice was really focused on the G chord. And then I would say, okay, I'm going to try throwing, strumming patterns. So when you're practicing a strumming pattern, don't change the chords. Just practice the strumming, okay? Strumming and changing chords is something completely different. That would be playing a song, then you would take it over to a song and start applying some of these things you're learning. But that's what I would do in a practice. Finger exercises, chord changes, strumming, and then, do that a couple days in a row. And then on the 3rd day, focus on playing a song or 2. Okay, because then you're going to put all that stuff together. You're still practicing all those things you were learning, but now you're putting it together in an application process. So excellent. You're really motivating. Well, I'm so happy to hear that. Bar chords do suck, Brian. That's why I never teach beginners bar chords. They're very, very hard. I do have a course on bar chords and power chords. They require a lot of strength. And I know a lot of guitar teachers who taught those right out of the gate for students. They're very hard. They're easier to play up here, and then you can work your way backwards. A little tip there for you. So, hi Angie Davis. How about D to C? I know you. I think you were talking about that in the community. So D to C. It's not easy. There's no pivot point. I know you guys know I like pivot points. Okay. And the easiest thing for D to C, just go slow. Okay. Go slow to get the right notes, get it sounding right, and then put it to a metronome. You can even sit and go D, 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 C, 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 C. See how my fingers are lifting off the strings a little bit? So now you're kind of getting the repetition of playing the chord multiple times. D, 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 D. Switch. Even if it takes you a second longer to switch to the C, 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 C. Back to D. Just the repetition, all right? And if your fingers are slow, that's totally normal. Don't worry about it. What's the easiest pentatonic shape to learn as a beginner? That would be pentatonic position 1. That's where most people start, A minor pentatonic. If you do a search, go Lauren Bateman, A minor pentatonic, or Lauren Bateman pentatonic scale. I have a video. I have a whole series on the pentatonic scale, or at least that first position. And that's a great place to start if you want to get into that. So awesome, everyone. Thank you. Someone calling in from Florida, South Africa. It is so sweet to see everyone. Thank you so much for jumping in on my little quick practice session. I've been getting a lot of questions about practice, so I wanted to come here live and share it with you guys here. Thank you so much, as always, for supporting the YouTube channel. And thank you for everyone, who gave me a super chat and the super chat and the super stickers. Really appreciate you guys supporting the channel. It means a lot to me. I really enjoy my time being here with you guys, and I really love teaching all of you on your guitar journey. I'll see you guys in a lesson video real soon. And if you watch the replay, make sure to say hello. Bye, everyone. Oh, one question, Alex. This is a Gretsch. It's my George Harrison Gretsch. They want to know what the guitar was behind me. George Harrison Gretsch.